Our next example is going to focus on employing custom business logic to automatically determine the next steps that samples should proceed to in their workflow. Now this step has been configured to kick off an external program script called assigning next steps when the record details screen is exited, allowing the next steps to automatically be populated by this script. This step is also in a unique position within the protocol. The automatically assigned next protocol step example that we're working with has two potential next steps when samples finish it. They can either move on to confirmation of low plexity pooling, or they can move on to the queue for automated workflow assignment. Now when we reach the record details screen of this example step, we're working with a batch of samples that have a mixed property of whether or not they need to be pooled. This is a submitted sample field that's being displayed in this record details table. When we move to the assign next steps screen, we're going to kick off a script that looks at that pooling field and decides whether or not the sample should move on to the queue for the next pooling step or skip that queue. Now let's also flip over to the REST API to see how this step is represented before that script kicks off. In the REST API, we have an actions endpoint that lists the next action and all the samples that are involved in the step. In here, we see that there is no assigned next action at this point. So now let's click Assign Next Steps and launch the script. And now that the script is completed, we have a nice custom message returned to the end user showing that 51 samples have been moved to the queue for confirmation of low plexity pooling, and the other 45 have been moved to the queue for automated workflow assignment. And when we enter the next step screen, we see that all the next steps have automatically been assigned, and the end user doesn't have to assign any of these. When we return to the actions endpoint in the REST API, we see that the script has assigned a next step URI for each of the samples in this step.